Okay,
they've been circling above, but nobody's landed.
I'm going to say something about your site that I noticed immediate. Turn your phone back around if you don't mind, or your tablet, so we can see your gourd rack.
I wish I could zoom.
But... Oh, it's a pretty stained glass window.
Oh, thanks.
All right, if you'll notice, and I'm all right, you have a great open site. I mean, it's
that's the closest
wide
tree.
open. Yeah, you got a pecan tree over there to the left. It's not too close. You got one oak. That's not a pecan tree, but you got some kind of tree over there to the right.
Oak.
It's not too close.
It's a big old oak tree.
Okay, but notice, this is one thing that I try to tell locals. Notice how your property is dropping off.
Yes.
In elevation, and you've got your gourd racks down there lower. They would be, now I don't know that you've got enough open area up here in the close to you, but they like a higher elevation. That helps a bunch. Now, if you had martins last year, you're going to get martins this year. It's just, yours just haven't come back yet. Yeah. So don't go moving your poles. But if you were a new landlord, I would have suggested you put them up higher on that hill, because elevation helps. And I see that here at my own site every year. My colony, let's see, I started in 2003, but not here. And in 2004, I added my first gourd rack at the barn, but that was before we lived on the farm. And in 2005, I added my first gourd rack here at my house. Let me walk. I'll try not to get seasick. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
Immediately after them, the yard drops down to this.
I can't see what's in my picture. Can y'all see my gourd racks?
Yep. Yes.
All right. Can you tell that there's a hill that goes up behind them?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So if you sawed my poles off where that hill is, they're only about 8 feet.
This is Dr. Tassin. I was paged for, I guess, 2203.
And so even though my poles are 18 feet tall, relative to the terrain around them, they're only about 8 feet tall. And I don't know if y'all can see way down there. It's on top It's on top of the hill.
Yeah. Immediately after my poles, the yard drops down to that, and then there's the front pasture.
But even though I have 54 gourds.
Yeah, this is Dr. Tassin. I was paged.
Hey, Safe, are you able to mute your microphone, please?
I think I can mute it.
Okay, so I have a question for Patty.
Yes.
Patty, did you have any issues last year with your martins? Do you use what type of predator guards do you use?
Just those upside down buckets.
Okay.
To prevent snakes. I did have a problem this year with starlings, and I bought myself a shotgun with bullets that are bird pellets or whatever. But also I had round holes on my gourds last year, and I bought these crescent shaped things that go over the holes. But last year, they were fine. I had maybe 10 adults, and then when the babies came, I had about 15 or 20. But one quick question I had for the group is, I've been playing the dawn song in the morning, and I've been putting the speaker like on top of one of those buckets. Should I do that, or should I just play it, put the speaker like on this porch where I'm standing or in the yard, or because I mean, it's loud and it's
Oh, that's
like
great. That's
it's a
great.
recording of maybe 50 birds. I mean,
Right.
it's-
No, that's great to
yeah.
put it down there where the gourd rack is. That's perfect.
oh, okay. Okay.
And it sounds like you solved your starling problem.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is make sure though that you don't run into like a raccoon or a snake problem. So
Yeah.
what you might want to do this year, Patty, is, and I'll post a link on our website, and I'll give you I'll tag you in it so that you can go look and see how to set up predator guards to make sure that raccoons and snakes cannot get up into your housing. You're in Georgia,
Yes.
and snakes get pretty big down there.
Yeah.
So you may need a little more protection other than the bucket. So I'll give you that information on our site, and you can use that to make sure they're going to be safe this year once you get them.
It's a cheap
Cool.
fix too.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's,
cool. Appreciate
bird
that.
netting doesn't cost much at all. The buckets I would think would keep the raccoons off as long as they're high enough.
well,
Yeah.
right. Depends on the high enough and how big the bucket is.
Right. It
Yeah.
looks like
Well,
5
they're-
gallon buckets from what I
They're
can tell.
5-gallon paint buckets.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I just painted white and popped
Okay.
holes in the top of them. I
Yeah.
also put the eggshells on the top, and they seem to like that. They went down and got them last year.
Yeah, and so you know, it may be just a matter of time now for your martins to return.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't rush things. You've got a small colony, and
I know.
the smaller
I
your
want a
colony,
huge one.
well, there's
I want-
advantages to both, but
Yeah.
it's just
So-
not time yet.
Right.
I'm still a beginner. Yeah.
They're
So,
coming.
and
Oh,
just
there's one right there.
there you go. You
There he
do
is.
have a great site.
He's cruising.
Okay.
Come back,
So
buddy.
how many gourds do you offer, Patty?
12.
Okay. So here's something that is stated on the PMCA's website. They recommend that in order to have a sustainable colony, because of the overall, I don't know how to say this, the overall death rate during migration.
Mortality rate.
Mortality, thank you. The mortality rate during migration is around 50 to 60%. So they recommend that the minimum size of a colony be offer 24 nest boxes for that many pairs of martins.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's the minimum. So
Yeah.
at some point when you start attracting them again, you might want to consider upgrading to at least a total of 24.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have another new member that joined, Velvet. Hi, Velvet. You're on mute. Hey, Velvet. Can you hear us, Velvet? Okay, maybe not. Can you hear us? Velvet, smile if you can hear us. Blink once.
I don't
No.
think she can hear us.
I don't think you can hear us. Oh, she's smiling.
Well,
Wait.
she smiled down. So.
Okay. All right, good. So I was going to ask her if she's a new landlord that would like to hear the presentation you were going to do, Brad, but I'm not sure she can hear us.
Here's my presentation. Stay away from trees.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
Yeah.
I don't want to dispute the PMCA, but I'm going to. Their recommendations for trees, it's not far enough, in my opinion. It's also kind of vague. Of course, I know they're the official organization. I do support the PMCA. They have to have some recommendation. But what is it? 45 feet for trees? Is that what they say on their website?
40 to 50 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great if you got a 10-foot tall tree. If you got a 100-foot tall tree and you're 40 to 50 feet from it, not going to work.
Yep, I agree with that. It's all safe is pinging me. I agree with that. It's all dependent on the trees around you.
Yes. And tree lines, you can get by with something with one tree where you can if you got a tree line or a circle of trees.
Right.
Trees are bad. Bad trees.
Yep. And trees, remember the old adage, I think it was Emil Pample that used to say it, purple martins like the land like airplanes, not like helicopters.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
Yep.
man, I love when they swoop down from way up high. It's so awesome. I just don't know how they land on that little tiny porch from like way up, just come bombing down. It's awesome.
I agree with exactly what you said. It is awesome.
It is so awesome.
Okay. We don't have any new members or new landlords, I guess, that need to know about location. Brad, do we want to move on to the nest checks?
Let me say one more thing, and then we'll move on. I showed you the hill in my back that goes up and away.
This is my other half, Stevie. Say hi, Stevie.
Hey, Steve.
He has to put up with my nonsense all year. Well,
there you go.
We appreciate your support, Stevie.
Even though my colony, I technically have 2 colonies because they're separated by 200 yards, 150 yards. My colony in my backyard is double the size of the colony at the barn. But because those poles at the barn are on top of that ridge, I always, without exception, always have my first martins return down there, even though there's 54 gourds there and 108 in my backyard.
Yikes.
The size of the colony doesn't even trump location.
Wow.
So,
what state are you in?
I'm right next to you over here in Alabama.
Alabama. I might have to come check out. I might have to come check your colonies out.
You just come on.
Awesome. That sounds awesome.
Just come on.
All right.
Hey, Brad.
Yes.
Didn't you drop a big tree in your backyard though? And
I did.
if that was correct, then how do you think that's going to affect it this year?
Well, it's going to keep martin poop off of my back porch, which will make my wife very happy.
That's a bonus.
Because they had to fly between the trees in my front yard and the trees in the tree that was in my backyard, so they flew directly over my house. We had an oak tree in our back. We have 3 water oak trees in our yard, 2 in the front, 1 in the back. And all 3 of them are about 50 years old. We have a disease in this area called oak wilt. It is 100% fatal. And the tree in my backyard started showing signs of it. So I didn't want it to spread to the 2 in my front yard because they give us afternoon shade. So we went ahead and removed it, and it changed the dynamics of the way my site looks considerably. So that's going to help. I mean, I had 155 pair last year. So I had 101 pair in my backyard. I'm not going to have more than that this year because I'm not offering more gourds, but it'll help them feel more secure. So,
man, I'm so jealous. God,
just take
with that many birds, Brad, with that size of colony. How often do you have hawk attacks, if any, on your colony there?
I've talked, Daryl, that's a great question, and I hear, I get asked this kind of every year. I had my first year 19 years ago, I had 4 pairs of martins, and I had hawk attacks every day during fledging time. And last year I had hawk attacks every day during fledging time. No more, really, no less. I'm not saying that everybody needs a 100 pair colony, because they don't, but yes, I'm sure more martins attract more hawks, but I've had hawk issues since really day one. I always seems to be 1 pair of Cooper's hawks that's somewhere around here, and some years they're more proficient at catching martins than they are others. Some years I lose very little, very few. Last year was horrible. It was absolutely horrible.
Last year I had hawk attack. I had 80 pair last year, my 8th year at my home site here, and it's the first year that I've noticed hawk attacks. And they, with Coopers coming in, and they were they were pretty successful, I would say. And the biggest thing, and I recognize the predators and the number of prey in one spot and the whole bit, but what's most disturbing is how it changes the social dynamic of the colony and the relaxed nature of the birds and their socialization. They're stressed to the point that starts to go away, and I think that's the hardest part. I also noticed last year that I usually have a pair of red-tailed hawks, and when I had red-tailed hawks around, I didn't have any other hawks, and I'm assuming they're helping to, or they maintain their territory and keeping some of the other hawks away. Last year, no red-tailed hawks, Coopers attacking, and now this year a red pair is back, and they're in the yard all the time, and I'm hoping they're nesting nearby, and I hope they stay nearby to keep some of the other hawks away. So
That's great.
that's my hope, that the red tails will stick around and keep the Coopers out of their territory.
And we have a pair of red tails that usually nest around here too. But I didn't see them as often last year. So I don't know if they've changed locations and I'm kind of on the fringe of their range or what. I did. Kathy, do you remember if it was last year I found the pile of hawk feathers over in our hayfield? I think I told you about that.
Yeah, it was last year.
Yeah.
I have 4 big old giant crows that hang out year round at my farm. I call them my flying monkeys, and they hate the hawks. When a hawk out of the tree line across the street, I mean, they go after him. They'll chase him like as far as I can see, and they'll just chase him away. They won't let him anywhere near here. It's so cool. I mean, I didn't know if anybody else had experienced crows, but man, they will not put up with any hawks coming anywhere over my property. It's just crazy.
There are multiple people that I know that feed crows just for added hawk protection.
Yeah.
I know Greg Ballard out in Arkansas, he's 400 and something pairs of martins, and he feeds his crows every day.
Yeah. Yeah, we feed them regular.
And I think it's important too, and I know Kathy feels the same way, to attract other birds to your property to help watch out for hawks.
Yeah, I had I have a problem with a Sharpie every spring here, and the reason it's a problem in the spring is because I only have a few martins around, and that Sharpie he takes advantage of only a few being here, because once you have the other advantage of having a big colony is you have more eyes in the sky to watch for the hawks. But you know, every situation is different. But anyway, I have a Sharpie that just loves to come through here in the spring, and so I have all 3 of my feeders around the perimeter filled up, and he gets some of the other birds.
Attracting doves is a good.
Doves?
It helps a bunch, because if a Cooper's hawk has an opportunity to get a dove, a big fat dove,
right.
a little skinny purple martin, it's going to get that dove every time.
Yeah, I use dove decoys too, and that I guess hunters use them too when they're hunting doves. I didn't realize they work so well to attract other doves.
Yeah,
but dove decoys will also help attract other doves.
Yeah,
so.
I use more dove decoys for hawk protection than I do martin decoys. I put them on my tomato baskets in the garden or around on the fence or whatever, and I move them pretty often. So,
yeah, how often do you move them around, Brad? Because I think I need to try that too.
Daryl, I really just start moving them once I see that one's been hit. Like if I come in and one's flipped upside down or flipped over or knocked off its perch, then I move. I usually keep like 4 at the house, and I'll move all 4 of them. And I've also, we have a tree line about 100 yards from the gourd racks at the barn. There's a stream there, and on the back side of that we have a 35-acre field. And I actually put decoys in that field too, because that is the most common flight path for the Cooper's hawks. They come across that field and then they come through the woods and come up to the barn or here to my house. And that decoy that I put over in the back, every time I go over there, it's knocked off its perch. So if it gives them just a little bit more time to get out, then that helps.
Yep. So Adam Danger, you were a new landlord last year. Did you have any questions this year before we move on to the next segment here? And now we have
No, I think I'm good. I appreciate it.
Okay, good. And someone named Bubba just joined. Hi, Bubba. Bubba's connecting audio. Okay.
Kathy, you also put feed around your dove decoys, don't you?
I do. Yep.
To draw in more.
Yeah, I put it on the ground. I put it up in feeders. I have doves and blue jays. I throw peanuts out for blue jays as well, because we have a lot of not hawks. We have a lot of crows too, but they don't seem to hang around here much during the summer. So we add. I also attract blue jays because they're just as good too. Hey, Bubba, welcome.
Hey, thanks. Sorry, I was the 803-215.
Oh,
Okay. Okay.
Couldn't get it all hooked up. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Well, good. But before we move on to the next segment here, did you have any questions about locating your Martin housing, or are you already a landlord?
No, I'm a landlord. Thanks.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, welcome. Okay. Brad, we ready
Yes,
to move on?
ma'am. We're ready.
All right. So my presentation is going to be on nest checks. Is there anybody here that wants to know about nest checks, or do we want to just continue with chatting? Raise your hand if you want to know how to do nest checks.
Hey, Kathy, if you don't mind running through it. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Kyle. I'm going to be banding martins at Brad and Tiffany's colony this year, along with a colony in the Panhandle of Florida and a site in Georgia. So I'm going to have the other colony hosts rewatch this. Brad, if you'll send it to me after, or just let me know where it is. It might be helpful to those folks if they're not, super invested.
Absolutely, be happy to. All right.
I want to hear about the nest checks. I did it a little bit last year, but I'd like to do a better job this year, so I would like a refresher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, here we go. Okay. So there are only a few basic rules that you need to know for starting nest checks. One is, and I'm gonna hold up my sign here.
Look at you.
I know.
Wow. No PowerPoint.
Well, kind of. So
Kidding.
strict rules. There's only a few. The first one is you only really need to begin nest checks after the green leaves are being hauled into the nest. Why is that? Because when the martins bring in green leaves, it's an indication that they're about to start egg laying. Now, before the green leaves start being brought in, you can do some random checks. You don't have to worry about being regular or anything, but you should probably do some random checks just to make sure some birds haven't died in your gourds or your housing or whatever. So, but the first rule is once you start your formal nest checks, it's after green leaves are being hauled in. The second one, make sure you wait to do your nest checks in the day until late morning to mid-afternoon. Why is that? Because I don't know if all birds do it, but purple martins lay their eggs early in the morning. You don't want to flush the female out if she's laying eggs. That could be the worst thing you could possibly do. And you also don't want to do it while it's too cold or if it's raining out either, because she may need to be in there incubating those eggs or incubating the newly hatched nestlings. So don't do it during cold or rain, but late morning, mid-afternoon. You also don't want to do it late in the evening, because if something goes wrong, a winch breaks or something bad happens, you won't be able to get it fixed before your birds are coming in, and you don't want them out late at night. You don't want to be trying to fix a winch at 9 o'clock at night. Now, I'm going to tell you, if my husband is my local weatherman, so he watches the weather for me and tells me, hey, it's going to be, 70 or 80 mile an hour winds tonight. You probably need to go lower your racks. I try to get all my racks lowered by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon because I don't want to be laying in there in bed wondering if my racks are going to be tipping over or not. So watch out for storms and make sure you try to get your racks down as early in the afternoon as you can for the night of. So I mentioned not during the cold or rainy weather. Okay, and then frequency. Let's talk about frequency. Like I said, before they bring in green leaves, you can check, every 5, 7, 10 days, whatever. Once they do start egg laying, every 5 to 7 days is the frequency you want to check. If you get beyond that, you kind of lose track of, well, how old are those nestlings and how old are those nestlings and where are the eggs and yada, yada, yada. A good tool to have is the PMCA's prognosticator. It tells you how old you can age nestlings. We've also put a link to that on the Fanatics site to show the aging of nestlings. And you can know when eggs are going to hatch. You can know and guesstimate pretty easily also when nestlings are going to fledge and when you don't want to be checking a gourd. But you can check gourds when they're ready to fledge. And I'll talk to you here in just a minute about that. So those are the 3 basic rules. For me, Brad's going to laugh because he's a lot less formal than I am. Maybe not formal is the word.
Yeah, that's one of the words.
I have a toolkit that I prepare for my nest checks. And the reason I do that is because I don't want to get out there and get covered with mites and then have to run across that hot yard with mites crawling all over me to get a tool. So here's some of my tools. I actually have a toolbox. And when I had a house, one of my favorite things I learned about was this telescoping mirror. If you have a house with deep cavities in it, this telescoping mirror is great because you can angle it and, oops, I blurred out. And it stretches out and you can look in that nest and see in the back of that nest exactly what's in there.
Cool.
So I have a telescoping mirror. I don't have a house anymore, but I still have the mirror. I have extra, whatever these little hooks are that you have for your gourds in case I lose one in the grass, which sometimes I do. These little S hooks or whatever they're called. What are those called, Brad?
Cotter pins. Cotter pins.
Cotter pins. Thank you.
Call them a hairpin.
In a pinch too.
A screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver. I don't know why.
Is that so you can shank your husband if he aggravates you?
I also have a set of channel locks. I don't know why I have those either.
Are you doing nest checks or working on the lawnmower?
All right.
Makes you wonder, right? So everybody knows I have cages for my because I have an owl problem. So I bring a whole bag of extra zip ties with me.
Queen of the zip tie.
How about duct tape?
I used to have duct tape. I don't anymore.
Gotta have duct tape.
I use zip ties now.
Oh,
So
okay.
my husband found me this little handy tool pouch because I have cages. I have to deal with wire and stuff like that. So I have wire cutters and I have a screwdriver. I don't know why I have a screwdriver either, but here's, but that's handy because I can just hang it on my pants and walk around and put whatever I need in there, right? The other thing I have found I carry with me in my toolkit is my handy dandy air horn because hawks are predator. I mean, they are, what's the word I'm looking for?
Opportunistic.
Opportunists. Thank you, Brad. Opportunistic predators. They'll look for the martins to be distracted by you and they will attack. So I carry my air horn and I use that to scare the hawks off and it works really well. You have to be out there, of course, when the hawk attacks in order to use that.
A nest check isn't is an excellent time to get a hawk attack.
Yes,
really
it is. So I talked about checking nests when the nestlings are ready to fledge. So you can do nest checks up until the day that nestlings are ready to fledge. And how do you do that? Especially when you have nests on your rack where you have a range of eggs and a range of aged nestlings all the way up to ready to fledge, right? I kind of read the feathers or read the wind and see what I really want to do. If I feel like I really need to do a nest check on a rack that has ready to fledge nestlings, I have these gourd plugs. And what that is, it's just a sock rolled up with a bunch of nylon rope so that when I get up to the gourd rack, I use a ladder usually, and I walk around with my ladder and I plug the nests where there are 25 to 26-year-old nestlings, because those can fledge on you in a second and take off. And if the parents aren't around, it could be bad. So I put these into the hole of the gourd and I let the rope hang all the way down. And then I do my nest checks. And sometimes I will, well, not sometimes, I check the gourd where I plugged it, count, and I make sure that all the nestlings are either there or they've already fledged. Leave this in there if they're still in there. Wind the rack back up, let the nestlings settle for 5 to 10 minutes. And then because your rope is so long, you can pull this out from the ground. And that will keep your nestlings from fledging on you that are ready to fledge when you're doing a nest check. So last two things, because you're going to be covered with mites. Oh, well, I don't have it with me, but I do also carry a baggie of paper towels where I poured in a bottle of rubbing alcohol, and I can take those paper towels out and wipe my hands off as I get freaked out or covered with mites. Too bad. The other thing I do is I have, those bands that you found on sunglasses that you always lose and throw off? Well, I started reusing them, and I have my little Sharpie marker in case I have to remark a gourd or do something with my little Sharpie. And that just tucks down into my pocket of my pants. But here's the absolute best tool. Here's what you want. I got this little $35 voice recorder at Walmart, and I can activate that when I start my nest check. And I don't have to worry about pen and pencil or my husband gets pooped on by the martins every time he walks out there, so he won't go out with me anymore. And so I got this cute little voice recorder, and it's awesome because I can record what nest number, what eggs, everything on there. And then later, after I get all the mites off, I can transcribe that into a book if I want, or I can just keep it like this. You know what's cool about this is if I listen to it during the winter, I can still hear the martins.
Oh, cool.
Because they're all chattering at me because I'm in their nest. But this is the best little $35 investment I've ever made for nest checks, is this right here. So that's my spiel on nest checks. Does anybody have any questions?
I
I
do.
had a question. Go ahead. You folks go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Bubba. As far as jumpers, we have not had any yet. When they jump, approximately how far may they go? And the reason I ask is we are planting our back field, trying to get as much natural habitat, but I'm afraid if we get too close and we get a jumper, it'll get lost in that back field. So
that's a good question, because I have the same challenge. But what I do is I keep about, I think about 30 to 40 feet. My husband keeps mowed behind our gourd racks, because they can jump, but it depends on when you find them where they'll be, because they could have hopped along the ground for 10 or 15 minutes before you find them. But usually the ones that can't fly, they just go straight down. And, this is another reason for doing nest checks, because you can get that jumper. We call them jumper, but a lot of times maybe they didn't jump. They just got knocked off a porch when they weren't ready to fly. They could have just gotten knocked off a porch by a rabid teenager, you know, a sub-adult or other people or what, or their parents. But normally they fall somewhere in the vicinity of their gourd rack within 5 to 10 feet out. But if you don't get them right away, they could hop along and go 20 or 30 feet. You know, I've had them all the way up on my deck before I found them, and my deck is 75 feet from my gourd rack. Yeah, so, you know, but here's another telltale sign to know about jumpers. Usually the martins from the colony are hovering around those that jumped. And they'll kind of point them out to you. But I would go 30 or 40 feet from your gourd rack, and that should be sufficient.
Good to know. Thank you.
Sure. Bubba?
I had a question about how long you can keep the rack down doing a nest check before you need to put it back up, maybe because of incubating birds or.
That's a good question. And that's why they recommend that you do it in normally warm weather. I don't really, it doesn't really get ready for egg laying here until the temperature's in the 70s. That's what I've noticed before. But the PMCA recommends 20 to 30 minutes per rack. And that's a fast check. But 20 to 30 minutes, I wouldn't go beyond that, especially if it's below 70 degrees.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. You mentioned plugging the holes. If we could find the link from last year, the gentleman, I can't remember his name, that used the
John
pool
Barrett.
handle. Yeah, John.
John
Used the
Barrow.
pool camera handle and the pipe insulation where you could stop them up before you let it down.
Yes.
And I did that. That worked real good for me. And just might be something we want to put a link to where people can see that.
That's a good reminder. Thank you, Debbie, for that too. You're right. He had I think you improved on it, didn't you?
Me?
Yeah.
I did something. I can't remember what I did. You know, I remember when I go pull it out of my tool box, but I squeezed the end to a point. I heated it.
That's
kind
right.
of melted and then squeezed the end to make a point. So you
Right.
could, it was easier then to ring it when you're reaching up so high. Yeah, I did do that.
So
but
that covers.
I'll show mine.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry.
No problem. So that covers nest checks. Nest changes would be a little bit more involved, but we can do a separate one on nest changes as well later on in the season, Brad.
Okay, if you don't mind, let me interject a couple of things. The first time to do a nest check is the second day you see a house sparrow sitting on a gourd porch, because they're gonna have a half a bale of hay in whatever gourd they're sitting in. Most of you saw the picture of the gourd that I posted yesterday that had the porch shot in half. I don't think I could have stuffed one more blade of grass in that gourd. I mean, there was a 5-gallon bucket.
Wow.
Of junk in that gourd.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I do, and Kathy, I'd like to know what you do about this too, but we have a tremendous, my martins use a lot of water oak leaves because I have water oaks in the yard, and water oak leaves are small and the eggs filter down into the leaves that they put in the nest bowl. I don't worry about seeing eggs as much as I do feeling eggs. If they're down, anytime you may not know yet, but after a few years, you're going to know more or less when a gourd should have eggs in it. Well, if I lower the gourd rack and I see a bunch of nests with no eggs that have a bunch of leaves in them, I know there's eggs there. I just start feeling down in the leaves and I just do it easily, and I count the eggs by feel, instead of trying to pull the leaves out and count them by looking at them. One's just as good as the other. You don't have to see it. It's an egg. You know it's an egg. So that's
Right.
one thing that I do.
Yeah. I do
Good
that
point.
too.
Thanks, Brett. Yeah, I do that too. Especially if I don't see any, and I think there should be some there.
I pinned you when you were giving your presentation. I will remove the pin now, so whoever's talking will pop up.
Kyle, did that help you at all? Did you have any other questions?
That pretty much covered it. Thanks, Kathy.
You're welcome. Good.
One thing you were talking about nest changes, it's good to have a spare gourd, so when you have to change a nest out, you can do it more quickly because you've got a spare one ready to go, you know, that's cleaned up and no mites. And
Good point. Yes.
and may, even though we're not doing the nest changes tonight, if you've got that back in your mind, you might be getting a new gourd, you know, getting your spare gourd, so you'll have it when you need it.
Yep, absolutely. That's my favorite way to do it, is to have some spare gourds on hand. My second favorite is to use the bucket, but we'll go into that in another one. Does anybody have anything else? Bill, you've been doing this for a while. Bill Winger, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so. I think I got the idea from the voice recorder from you years ago, and I started using it. The only thing I didn't like about that is if you have 5 eggs in a nest, one nest check, and you go and you do it with the voice recorder and you only find 4, you don't know if you missed it or it's no longer there or whatever. So then you somewhat need to double check that the next time.
Yeah.
That's my concern too with that voice recorder. I really wanted to use one, but I need to look at my notes constantly.
Well, that's why I transcribe it from the voice recorder into a notebook. And then the next time I do a nest check, I record it again and then I compare them. But yeah, and then I know I need to double check this one again.
Or like if you find a really small baby that just is not the same age as his siblings, and you really need to change that baby out now, you know, if you don't have your notes with you, that's kind of hard.
Yeah, that's true.
But I love that idea.
I just don't want mites in my notebook.
That's true.
I'll tell you,
if you would shave your head, you wouldn't have
no.
to so much.
Hey, that's a good point, is you should always put your hair up in a rubber band before you do it, because every time you inadvertently, you know, put your hair back with your hand, and that is awful.
Never happens to me. Ever.
And I'll tell you, it doesn't matter if you don't see mites. You touch a gourd, you're going to have mites on you. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Maybe you won't have such a mite problem this year. Didn't you do some modifications to your gourds to try to alleviate a little of the moisture problem? That you do the waffle thing on the bottom and
yes, Kathy, didn't you do all these modifications on your gourds?
You'll still have mites,
somebody did.
10 of them I did. But moisture isn't the only problem that causes mites.
Right.
You know, mites are naturally on the birds and they occur in all the nests. Purple martins bring them in from wherever. And actually the mites explode the worst when the nestlings are 10 to 12 days old. And that's usually when I do a nest change on all my gourds, is when they're about 12 days old.
That's when it's hot and humid and it's just the perfect condition. The mites, when it's hot, the mites don't have to stay on the birds. They can go off and get into the nests, and it can cause, I hope that all these gourd modifications that I did, I've got one sitting right here beside me for show and tell if anybody wants to see it.
Let's see
Mine
it.
are hanging already.
Well, I've got some extra, so these are the waffle fries, as
Yeah.
Lindsay Darr calls them. I did run into this yesterday. If you shoot a porch off of the tunnel and you have Lexelled the tunnel on the gourd, just go ahead and take it down, take it to the barn, hang another one up, because you're not going to just swap that tunnel right out there at the gourd rack. And there's the copper tubing that I put through the neck and the elbow. But I hope that after all that 300 hours of work that I did this winter, that it keeps my nest more dry.
Brad, what did you
I'm sure
use?
that it would.
What did you use to make the waffling on the bottom?
I took a bolt and cut a grid pattern in it, and then I heated it with an acetylene torch till it was cherry red, and I touched it to the bottom of the gourd.
The head of the bolt. Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
wondering
yeah,
if
yeah.
you could use I was wondering if you could use like the waffle of a framing hammer, maybe able to get the entire waffle done with one heat.
Well, here's the problem with that. And I don't know how good you can see this, but the contour of the gourd is
Oh, yeah, got
so that you have to do and there's a different contour on these 3 holes than there is these 3 holes. So Gene Eldridge, I was trying to modify 185 gourds.
Oh, wow.
So Jean Flores, she used a wood burning tool, and it worked great for her. If you've got 12 or 24 or 36 gourds, that may be the easiest way for you to do it. Not everybody's got an acetylene torch laying around. I could do a gourd a minute with a torch. I had 2 bolts. And my son helped me. He would heat the bolt he would heat one bolt while I was using one bolt, and then I would sit a gourd down. He would hand me a gourd. So it helps to have a partner.
And what's the purpose of that? I don't understand.
Okay.
I mean, the holes were there, right?
Debbie, what's the gentleman's name that started all this?
Russ.
Blanchard.
Russ, what's his last name?
Ross
Russ
Blanchard.
Blanchard.
Ross Blanchard, yes.
Yeah.
All right, this defies gravity, and it defies physics. But this gourd hanging like this, water will run down the gourd and go up the drainage hole. Kathy and I tested
There's
that.
a term.
Huh?
There's a term for that. It's
Weird.
the same reason
Wicked.
that water goes.
Well, what it is the surface tension of the water is strong enough that it doesn't let go of the gourd. It's still clinging to the gourd, and it turns and runs up into the bottom.
That's the same. It's not osmosis, is it? There's a term for it. It's the same principle that plants draw water up through their stems.
Capillary action.
It's just capillary action. So the water kind of seeps up through those holes just a little bit, and then it gets the straw wet before it drains out.
Crazy.
I have heard that posted before, and I would say this if Ross was on our call, I did not believe it. I'm not from Missouri. Kathy is, but I'm one of those you got to show me. So, Kathy and I started doing some testing this winter, and I took some blue paper towels that we used at our shop. I put it in the bottom of the gourd. I put some kiln dried sand on top of it to weight it down. And that paper towel, after just like 30 seconds of spraying it lightly with a water hose, that paper towel was soaked.
Get out of town. That's crazy.
And then the biggest shocker of all was this. The push pin. I don't know what kind of gourd you got. This is a Troyer gourd with a tunnel on it. This push pin right here.
Right.
It's like it's just like there's a hole there. That's how much water would go around. And Tammy did a video of that last week or week before last. I was amazed how much water can come in around that. So
I don't understand it.
I really don't either, Tammy.
It doesn't make sense to me.
But I can tell you, I've never had a Troyer horizontal gourd until this year. I bought some to convert to northern rough-winged swallow gourds. I remember Tony Lau last year talking about the feather damage on his horizontal gourds because of wet poop in the gourds. And after seeing some, I can understand that, because I have no idea if y'all can see this, but on the vertical gourds, where the tunnel slides up onto the gourd itself, is smooth. Well, on the horizontal gourds, there are ridges molded onto the gourd back from when they were only offered with a round hole. And now they slid a tunnel up on there. So you've got a 1/16 of an inch gap on top of that tunnel all the way around the top. So water that runs, and the top of the gourd relatively flat, but it's still got water that's going to run down there, and it's going to run straight into that tunnel.
Okay. So making those little marks around the edges of those holes keeps the water from going up in them?
Yes, it
breaks
lets
the
it, it breaks the surface tension.
Oh,
And it falls. Jimmy Dugan posted a great video of that in action with it raining. You could go back and search
I'll have
his
to
name.
check it out.
Yeah,
Is it on Facebook?
It's on our Purple Martin Fanatics group.
Okay, I'll take a look.
But it shows the water hitting the waffled spots and dropping off instead of running over.
Going in.
Into
Wow,
it.
thanks.
But
Thanks.
I'm gonna try to plastic mesh from Hobby Lobby
Yeah.
that someone said they put in the bottom rather
Yeah,
than
Malcolm
doing the gourds
Stevens.
like that. I think that would be easier.
Yeah,
Of course,
Malcolm
they tell us
Stevens.
this little, trick after you've done all those gourds.
If anybody wants to see what she's talking about, just search for Malcolm Stevens' name on the Fanatics group, and he had posted something about it 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
It's a neat concept, and I guess if I had known about it before I did mine, I would have still done what I did, because I got too much to do maintenance on stuff.
Right.
My gourds are done forever.
You're done.
I don't have to do anything but wash them and put them back up for as long as they last.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Hey, Safe, thanks for joining. You look like you're driving.
Safe, it's not safe to text and drive. I don't know about zooming and driving.
Okay, so does anyone have any more questions? We've reached the end of our hour, but
I've got one more question for everybody, and I'm going to jump back a little bit to the whole mic conversation. Do y'all ever run into ticks on your birds?
no.
Okay. No.
If you ever do, let me know, because I've got a friend that's a professor at the University of South Alabama who's been doing a tick study and has been looking for ticks on birds. And he's been collecting them all over the Americas. So if you ever do find one, let me know.
Okay.
One thing that you might, is he an entomologist or is he an ornithologist, or do you know, he just
I'm not entirely sure what the project is based on.
Okay. One thing that the birds need a lot, and it's not just purple martins, but what do you call those, buffalo gnats? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Buffalo flies. I don't know. I know Tiffany had them last year and they were horrible. She was having to spray the outside of her gourds and with permethrin because they were just wearing her martins out. I saw a video camera put on an eagle nest where they had them too. It's okay to rub your nose, Kathy. We're not taking screenshots or anything. It's itching, boy. Okay.
Got a quick comment there to Kyle. He asked about those gourds. Kyle, how many gourds do you have again?
So I'm actually not a landlord. I am not in a fantastic place. I live in Foley, Alabama. And there's a lot of flat land around here, but I live in basically a cookie cutter house neighborhood. So the HOA prevents me from doing a lot of stuff. And there are just a lot of houses and a lot of crazy folks in this neighborhood. So I wouldn't want Martins jumping out and landing in somebody else's yard with a yappy dog that comes through and scoops them out.
Gotcha.
Okay. Well, Brad, you didn't know about this. I just tried this out yesterday because we don't have too many gourds.
Right.
But so my idea was I wanted to try, let me see if I can get this. I want to try watch camera.
I see what you did.
So yes, kudos to my wife because she let me use a KitchenAid meat mallet.
The next time you have cube steak, it may taste a little like plastic.
I told her it's sanitized. But I'll admit I was also talking with Eric Evans, and Eric, you know Eric, and he's got a colony and a lot of gourds. And he was thinking about making a fixture, and he said, well, what about copper pipe or galvanized or something else? And I said, well, I got a bunch of stuff out in the barn. So I tried one here with Schedule 80, which to the group is a thicker, heavy pipe. Then I did one, let me see if I can move it in here, 3/4 inch copper, 1/2 inch copper, and then of course Brad's and the bolt. Now I'll be honest, between all of them, I prefer the bolt. I've done a lot better. I've already done about 30 gourds here with the meat mallet, so it's toast, and I've done better than this. But I don't know, just for scientific, try something out. I can still see a little edge in here just in case you might get a little water, but the heavy pipe does good. But I would not recommend the copper. While it heats fast, if somebody's not prepared, by the time you go through a bunch of gourds, and Brad, you've known this, you heat that thin pipe up and that sucker's going to go right through the gourd. It's going to.
I didn't think about that, but
yeah,
though, Travis, that might work perfect though, because that's the problem with those the heavier bolts. I used 5/8 bolt. It took 45 seconds or more to heat it up and get hot.
Yeah,
I did all these on a propane torch because my oxygen ran out on the MAP gas. So I did all these and heated up the different ones and took about 4 minutes to do the whole gourd.
Okay.
So I think yours is the best, but to Eric's point, and Eric, he's got that mentality. He was going to design a fixture to do one gourd in one shot.
Oh, nice.
So to his point, I'd recommend the thicker wall tubing. But just an idea to put it out there. You've done a lot more than I have.
The very first thing I tried was just a solid rod with no waffling, no nothing, and just tried to make an indention around each hole on the bottom of the gourd, and I almost pushed it through the gourd. So I bet it would be easy to do with that 1/2 inch copper pipe.
It was real easy because it's so fast to heat up. Even with propane, I can see where it's tempting with, somebody doesn't have as many gourds.
Right.
That snicker would go right through.
it'd be great if somebody would come up with a tool though that all of us could use.
Yeah.
It was easy.
What was the pipe that you used on that one, the thick wall one? What was that?
That was 1 inch Schedule 80. So a heavy wall,
Copper pipe?
black iron gas pipe.
Okay.
Yep. I can go get Oxy. It's over my set's over at my brother's house, and I'll probably finish it up with the bolt. And Brad, I got lazy. I just cut the head in the bolt. I didn't cut the bolt head off.
If I had, truthfully, if I'd thought about it to start with, that's how I would have done mine too.
Once you heat that bolt up, I love the heat retention on it. And over the mallet, because the mallet did really good, and I could roll that sucker across very easy for the size of the mallet, but the heat retention is just
I'm
horrible.
guessing it was aluminum.
Yeah,
Aluminum mallet, yeah.
I get 2 holes done, but I was also using a welding glove and it was burning my hands through the glove to keep the head so hot. My hand was starting to get blisters on it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ouch.
Not to
Guys.
mention the smell, because I was doing it in the house in January.
Oh.
Yeah, right. I agree with Anna. I did that in my garage and the smell was awful. I can't imagine
Yeah,
doing it in the house.
it was bad.
Okay.
Guys,
So what
guys,
if you
Tiffany-
use,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Saif.
yeah, so what if you use like 2 pipes, like you use a 3-foot pipe and a 1-inch pipe? What if you do like 2 circles, 1 big circle, 1 small circle?
Well, you could do that, but I look at the concentricity around the circle
Uh-huh.
and you're kind of judging it, based on how you're holding 2 different things and all that. So you would have to figure out a way to get the circle concentricity the same to get around that.
Okay.
Plus that thin pipe could easily burn through the gourd quickly.
Yeah.
So I would say I would stick with a heavier pipe.
At least mine are done. I don't have to do it again.
There you go.
I thought about this after I got finished, but probably the easiest thing to do, and it wouldn't cost that much if you had an air compressor at your house, you could sandblast the bottom of the gourds and it would fix everything. It would
That's a
dimple
great
them up.
point.
It would dimple them up. You could get the little chintzy Harbor Freight sandblaster. You probably use 2 pounds of sand per gourd, and you're just texturing the bottom, and it's going to accomplish the same thing. So,
Yep.
but
Okay. So anybody else have any questions, comments, or anything?
we got to check on Tiffany in a little bit because she's under a tornado warning.
Okay.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Travis, thanks for the examples and ideas. That was good.
Yeah.
We
I
need
love
more.
show and tell.
Yeah, I do too.
Do you want me to post it? I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
sure.
need kudos. I just wanted to share